people. So this is my home automation talk. I'm going to be talking about a weather station, lights, security, and a few other interesting things. As I put this together, I realised I'm actually a bit of a fanatic, and it's a bit scary to realise just how much home automation stuff I've got here. So first of all, what got me started on this was John Lewis decided to stop selling NetAtmo equipment. And I thought, that's okay, that's interesting. They sold it all off at less than half price. So I went up to John Lewis in Ipswich and I bought a smart home weather station. And I kind of got hooked and expanded on it. And I went back and got the additional indoor module. And I went back to get the rain gauge. And I thought, these things are really quite good. I like this company. They seem to know what they're doing. So I then went and bought the NetAtmo cameras and security system. And it's kind of grown from there. So when I'm talking, just be aware there's other people selling similar kit. So I like NetAtmo, and most of my home is based around NetAtmo. It tends to be expensive, but it offers many benefits, which I'll cover as I go through. Please shout out if you've got any questions as we do this.
What's an anemometer?
That's a smart name for wind speed measure.
Right. Okay.
So
thank you.
This is what they do, and what you need to do is start off with this smart home weather station, which gives you what they call the big module and the small module. The big module is an indoor module which you put in your lounge or somewhere in your home, and it plugs into the mains. So it needs a mains power supply, a mains adapter, and it's just got a cable that goes to it, and everything else is done through Wi-Fi. It then connects to your router through Wi-Fi. So you need to configure it and let it access your Wi-Fi with the password and everything. But once you've done that, it just works. The other module lives outdoors, and it's actually battery powered and waterproof. And it doesn't use Wi-Fi, it uses Zigbee or other protocols. So most of the battery powered stuff that I'm showing you is incredibly low power. And my weather station, outdoor weather station, is positioned about 8 meters, 10 meters from the house, the other side of a solid brick wall, and it has absolutely no problem communicating. So I'm very impressed with that. So what this does, this measures temperature and pressure and various other things. We'll come on to that in a second. You can get another additional indoor module, so you can monitor temperature and things in multiple rooms in the home. The anemometer is a wind gauge, so it's got some little spinning bucket things inside. It measures the wind speed and direction. And then there's the rain gauge. So you start off with the indoor and outdoor modules. The outdoor monitor, the small one, can measure temperature, humidity, and air pressure. The indoor one measures temperature and humidity. It also measures carbon dioxide level and sound level. You can have 3 more indoor modules, which can measure temperature, humidity, and CO2, but not sound. And you can position them in different rooms around your house. They're all battery powered. And again, the batteries last for easily a year, perhaps 2 years. If you choose to, you can have the anemometer and rain gauge outdoors later. Really nice thing about this is it's compatible with Apple HomeKit. Now, many of the home automation systems come with their own app. So you get an app on the phone, you can figure it all through that app, you can look at that app and all the results are in the app, but it's not really integrated into the rest of the system. So the only way to access it is via that app. Things that are Apple HomeKit compatible can be brought together under the Apple Home app. And the Apple Home app, I'll cover this in a second, brings everything together. You can see which devices are in which rooms. So you can look at a room, you can see a camera view of it, you can see a temperature, the humidity, the sound level, all of this information on a single page, and you can swipe between the pages. So I really like having things that are Apple HomeKit compatible, and most of what I've got is, but it does add to the price, unfortunately. This weather station, to buy it new from John Lewis, it's actually £157. So it is quite expensive, and that's what you need to get started. Bearing in mind, I got mine for about 65. I thought it was a complete bargain, and it's fantastic. The price is going to put some people off, but once you've got it, it'll last for years and years, and it's really quite interesting to use. The rain gauge is quite nice. This is the rain gauge. This also sits outdoors. It's got 2 AAA batteries in it. You need to position it away from the house, away from trees, etc., so it can collect all the rain. The rain falls into here, goes down into the funnel, and goes inside. You receive near to real-time rainfall updates. So it sends a report back to the main unit inside the house every few minutes, every 5 minutes or so. You can see the rain history, you can see how much rainfall you've had every day. It's got a very long battery life, but you can't rely on it to tell you to get the washing in, because it takes a few minutes to respond. If you imagine you've got raindrops falling onto this little plastic funnel, most of the raindrops just stick to the funnel and don't actually go anywhere. They don't fall down to be measured. So until you've got a reasonable amount of rain, it doesn't actually start telling you it's raining. And when it does start telling you it's raining, your washing is all wet and it's too late to get it in. So it's a bit annoying. I was hoping that I'd get a really good rain alarm so I could rush out and get the washing in if I needed to. I'm looking at alternative solutions for that. I've got other ideas. The rain gauge itself is £70. I got mine half price. I mean, I think I told people on Smug about it at the time. It was about 3 years ago. It was a fantastic deal. I made about 5 trips to John Lewis, and every time I bought something, I thought, this is fantastic. And I went back and got another one. And I started finding other stores around the country. And I was phoning up Cambridge and Norwich and saying, have you got any of these? Can you post me them, please? And I did really well out of it. So it's a fantastic deal. This is how the rain gauge works. I've got a little video here to show you. So it just unscrews. You can take it apart quite easily. And it's got a little tipper inside it. So you imagine the rain falls onto one side of the tipper. And then once it's got a sufficient quantity of rain, it tips the other way. And that activates a little counter. So basically it just counts how many times it flips, reports that back to the base station. It comes pre-calibrated, but if you're really fanatical, you can actually pour in measured amount of water and calibrate it yourself. So yeah, I'm very impressed with all of these. The Anemometer is just a wind speed measurer. It's compatible with smart weather stations, so it sends its data back to the big module that sits in the house. You can get real-time wind updates on your iPhone, iPad, Mac. All of these things work with everything. So you can access this data through an app on your phone, through an iPad, through a Mac. You can use a website to access it. There's some smart TV apps that can access it. And if you're using the phone or the iPad, you can either use the NetAtmo app or you can use Apple Home. And there's pros and cons. So Apple Home will tell you the current outdoor temperature, etc., but it won't show you the historic temperature, whereas the NetAtmo app gives you a much more detailed, nuanced view, and you can look back through the history. It can send alerts to you. So if you get very strong winds, you get an alert on your phone, a notification. It's battery powered. That put me off. I read some of the reviews, and this is the only product I'm talking about that I didn't actually buy. To actually be effective, you've got to put it away from trees and buildings. You really want it quite high up. And I nearly put it on a TV pole at the top of my house, but my house is quite tall. And you think, what am I going to do when I only need to change the batteries? So I thought I could try and connect a wire and a power supply, and it was all getting too fiddly. So I thought, to be realistic, you've got to put it somewhere where it's accessible, and finding somewhere where you're going to measure true wind speed is a bit tricky. And it's £99. So I didn't buy that. That's the only thing I've not bought. And this is what it looks like. So I've got some annoying things on my screen. I don't know whether you can see them. Can I get rid of them?
Are you talking about the Zoom menu at the
Zoom,
top center?
Zoom menus, yeah.
So at the right hand end of it, there's a down pointing arrow. And if you click on that down pointing arrow, there are 2 options to get rid of the menu and also the little images of us watching.
I can't see the images of you. I can't see down. Oh, I see it. A minute.
It's up at the top, not at the bottom, Paul.
Top middle, Paul, says view options with a drop-down list arrow beside it.
View options.
So
No, it's at the top of the screen.
Should be at the top of your screen.
No, I can't see that. Oh, I know. Wait a minute. I've minimized it. Is that the problem? 1 second. Let's just try. If I come out of full screen, can I do it that way?
You absolutely 100% certainly will not find it anywhere apart from top center.
Top center.
Yes.
I put my mouse pointer top center. It's just completely black.
Sorry, I don't understand that.
I've got advanced sharing options.
No. Oh, that's really weird. I'm sorry, I can't help.
No, let's just ignore it.
Do you see 3 little dots?
I can see 3 little dots. Yeah. Hide floating meeting controls. That's what
There
I
you
need.
go.
Thank you very much. Well done.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Right, that's what we need. Okay, so here's some typical
Thanks, Sheeta.
screens. That's perfect. So this is what the iPhone app looks like. So if I'm running this on the iPhone, I've got 3 screens. So if I look at the left-hand one first, so if you look at this this left-hand one, this is iPhone screen. This is NetAtmo weather app. And basically, you've got a little image which tells you roughly what's happening. It's saying it's 10 degrees. The lowest temperature that day was 10 degrees. The highest temperature is 16.4 degrees. So this is 9:59 p.m. So temperature's dropping. Pressure is 1021 millibars. Dew point is 7 degrees. That means if the temperature gets down to 7 degrees, that's when dew starts forming. Humidity is 84%. And down at the bottom, it's saying this is the forecast for the week. And that's the outdoor part at the top. And then the bottom part of the screen is showing me the indoor view. So the indoor view is currently showing the lounge. And it's saying the CO2 level is good. It's quite low, 601 parts per million. The temperature is 20.6. Lowest temperature that day was 19.1. Highest temperature is 20.8. At the moment, it's 35 decibels, so it's fairly quiet in my lounge. And the humidity is 56 degrees. It doesn't show me pressure because obviously the indoor pressure has got to be the same as the outdoor pressure. Otherwise, I've got some kind of airlock problem and there's danger of the cats being sucked out the window. So obviously the pressure is going to be the same, but temperature and humidity won't be. So that's the standard view, which is quite useful. It's quite effective. I can then swipe across. If you see in the middle, you've got a little temperature thermometer gauge, and you've got a weather drop, and then you've got the wind. So if I swipe across, then it shows me the middle view, and this is rainfall. So it's saying that particular day, at the moment, there's no rain, millimeters per hour is 0, but in the day we've accumulated 1.8 millimeters, so not too much, and the forecast for the day was 3.3 millimeters. If I swipe again, I can get to the air quality view, and it's saying the air quality is 26 out of 500, which is pretty low, pretty good. The main pollutant that day is ozone, O3. Sometimes it'll be PM 2.5 particles, I think, which is large particles of pollutant. This is not measured. This is actually coming from some kind of forecast somewhere, prediction. So it's collecting data from other sources as well, integrating it in, just as it's showing me the weather forecast here at the bottom for the weather forecast for the week. But the other measurements are actually live measurements from my garden. The outdoor probe, I should mention, is waterproof, so you can actually put it anywhere, but you also need to put it outside, away from sunlight. You don't want it where the sun can shine on it, because that's going to affect the readings. And I actually put it underneath my shed roof. So I've got a shed with a roof, with an overhang, and I just put a nail in and hung it up there. And I thought it's probably best to keep rain and snow off it, probably get more accurate readings that way. And it's probably less likely to go wrong. And it works quite happily there. So that's the standard view. If I look at the next screen, what we're now going to focus on, don't need to worry too much about the top view. The bottom view is now showing the different rooms. So just so I can swipe the top part of the screen left and right. I can swipe the bottom part left and right to access different rooms. So here's my lounge, here's my bedroom, and here's the kitchen. Now, one of the really interesting things is this carbon dioxide level. I never gave this much thought. You may know background carbon dioxide is about 400 ppm. But if you've got a lot of people in a room, it rises. So if you have 2 or 3 people, say 3 people in my lounge, it's a reasonable sized lounge. If you have the windows closed and the door closed, you have 3 people there, it'll very quickly get up to 1,000 or 1,200. And I never thought too much about this. I mean, carbon dioxide is fairly harmless, you breathe it out all the time, but it does make you feel sleepy. And you then realise when it gets to 1,200, it's a known effect that you feel quite drowsy. And if it gets up to 2,000, that's getting quite serious. That's like the equivalent of having a couple of pints of beer. So it's really interesting. And with COVID, this has been phenomenal because people have started using carbon dioxide monitors as a way of finding out how much expired air is being collected in a room. So schools have started deploying them into classrooms, for example. So if your carbon dioxide level, your CO2 level goes up to say 800 or so, it means there's a lot of accumulated air just from people breathing out. Carbon dioxide is what we all breathe out all the time. It accumulates in the room. So what that means is if there's a high level of CO2, you've got poor ventilation. And if anyone's got COVID, you've got a high level of COVID particles in the room. So it's actually very useful to measure CO2 level if you're concerned about COVID at all. My son has become fanatical about this. So if the CO2 level goes above 800, he gets a notification on his phone. He automatically stands up and goes and opens a window. And the effect is really very dramatic. So just opening 1 or 2 small transom windows at the top actually stops it going above 600. Whereas if you have those windows closed, it will very quickly go up to 1,200 or higher. So it's a fascinating effect. And if you have a door open and a window open, then it's always very low. So that persuaded me that it's very easy to ventilate a room for COVID. You open a door, you open a window, you get a through draft, and you've pretty much solved the problem. And I think the vast amount of COVID is caught by people being in confined spaces with poor ventilation. And I think the ventilation is far more important than wearing a mask. So CO2 I thought was a bit gimmicky, but it's really useful. You can also share your weather data. So if you can see this little blue circle here, that's where I live in Ipswich, near to Christchurch Park. My monitor is saying the outdoor temperature is 10 degrees. I don't share indoor temperature because that's a bit pointless, but it shares my outdoor information. So the outdoor temperature is 10 degrees. There's someone over here, don't know who it is. They've got one that says 11 degrees. There's someone down here, down Constable Road, someone near the town centre, and a few scattered around. So there's not that many users, but it's quite interesting seeing where the NetAtmo users are in Ipswich. And these are the ones that are sharing their data at least. And you can choose to share your rainfall, your temperature, and wind speed. And you can actually zoom out on that, and you can actually see it for the whole of the UK or the whole of the world, in fact. That was the iPhone app. This is the website. So this is on my Mac, looking at the website. I've logged in as me. All the data is shared to the cloud. And here you can see the temperature has been dropping. It's now 9.9. Here's the weather forecast again, fetched from my website. Here's my actual measured temperature in the garden. So this is quite interesting. Fell very dramatically here. So what's that? About 2 p.m. Temperature suddenly started dropping. Probably got cloudy. This is my indoor temperature in the lounge, and this is really fascinating. So overnight, the temperature drops fairly linearly, so it's just over 20 degrees. The outdoor temperature is 10 degrees, so my house doesn't have any cavity walls, let alone insulation, and the temperature drops fairly rapidly until the heating came on. So that's about 7 a.m. the heating came on, very quickly brought the lounge up to 20 degrees. And that particular day, I turned the heating off because I wasn't there. So then the temperature starts falling because the outdoor temperature is still fairly low. But then there's an interesting effect because my lounge is south facing. So the sun shines into the lounge, warms it up, and it actually warms it up quite nicely, quite rapidly. So quite useful, quite interesting just to look at this data. So that's the website. Any questions? That's the end of the weather section. So I'll just log into the website while we're talking. But let me know if you've got any questions or you want to know anything about that, and I'll move on to another topic in a second.
I did this sort of stuff for my CSE geography project, and I had nothing anywhere near as sophisticated as this. It would have made it a lot easier.
So this is a live view of the website. I can step through the days. I can look at the temperature on different days, and it falls quite rapidly once the sun has set or the sun's gone behind the trees, etc. It falls quite rapidly. So it's just really interesting looking through the data, and just having people in the lounge makes a big difference. So that's quite an interesting effect. There's a nice smooth curve. That's a nice day. Got up to 17.5 degrees that day. I can point at it. If I move the pointer, you can see at 10:05 it's 12.5 degrees. Down here you can see the temperature in the lounge. So again, I can move my pointer and look at different temperatures. Well, my kitchen probe, it's saying it's got a low battery. If you look at on the right hand side, it's got my altitude. That doesn't normally change, fortunately. That's 51 meters, so I'm 51 meters above sea level. My lounge is connected through Wi-Fi. The bedroom's connected. It's got a good signal, good battery. Kitchen's got a good signal, but poor battery. So I need to change the batteries in the kitchen probe. That's Nathan's bedroom. That's the garden, and that's the rain gauge. If I look at the NetAtmo shared data, there we go. You can actually see measurements across the whole of Europe, pretty much. And it's color coded. So down here in Spain, it's nice 21 degrees. In London, it's 13. Ipswich, it's 11. And if I zoom in, it's averaging here, so it's not showing every gauge. If I zoom in, then you'll see more up here, more results up here. There we go.
Paul, can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
Couple of questions in chat. Is there a barograph function in the software to log historical pressure? John Prescott?
Yes, there is. Absolutely.
Swiftly answered, thank you. And Ferris asks, can you export the weather data so it can be imported to Excel / numbers, whatever?
Oh, I've never thought about that. I think you can. But I've never tried. Let's just see if I can get. I don't normally use the website. I normally do everything through the iPad and the iPhone. So, where are we? Let's just look at pressure, for example. If I click on pressure here, will that show me a pressure view? No. In the app, I can. In the app, I can see historic pressure, and I can see everything. The features are slightly different on the website. I'm just looking for a way of exporting data from here. Temperature in the garden. Data management. Let me export. Not sure. Pretty sure you can, but I've not tried. Oh, there we go. There's pressure. Yeah, there's a pressure graph. Okay, so I can add different graphs here. So I can move the graphs around. There's the pressure. I can step back and look at it on different days. I can look at it over a week view. There's the week view. There's the month view. And there's the year view. So that's quite nice. And I can do the same with rainfall. So if I find the rainfall down here, there's rainfall. main gauge. There we go. So I can look at that. If I click on that. That's the main gauge. Okay, so that's the view today. That's rainfall today. So a little bit of rain this afternoon, around 4 or 5 up to 8 o'clock. I can step back and look at previous days. This is yesterday, previous day. Here's rainfall for the week, rainfall for the last month, and rainfall for the year. And I can actually just move the pointer and it'll show me for that particular period, for that week, these bars represent weeks. So that week we had 27.5, and then May and June we had the drought, so we had virtually no rain at all. Okay, any more questions? I'm not looking at the chat, Mike, so if you shout out the questions from the chat, please.
Yes, of course, we'll do.
So if there's no more questions.
No, there are no other questions in chat. So
let's move on. Okay, so that's the weather. Next step is security. And this is great fun. I love this. So I've got indoor and outdoor cameras. I've got an external siren. I don't have a smoke alarm. I don't have the door sensors yet. I quite like the idea of door sensors. I've got a video doorbell. I've got a Netatmo doorbell, but I've not fitted it yet. What I've shown there, that's a picture of a Ring doorbell. So Ring is probably the most popular video doorbell, but it's not HomeKit compatible, which I don't like. And one of the benefits of Netatmo equipment is that all of the cameras can record everything locally onto an internal memory card, a little SD card. And you might say, well, what if a burglar breaks in and steals the cameras or takes the card out? And in practice, that's such a fiddly thing to do. And most people don't even know they are cameras. You don't even know what they are to look at them. If you use Ring or any of the other systems, the vast majority of them need a paid subscription to store the video data in the cloud. I don't like that because the cost soon adds up. I had a BT camera, BT security camera, and I paid £10 a month for it, I think. So that's £120 a year. And then you had to pay that amount for multiple cameras. So if you have 4 cameras, you're paying £40 a month, which is ludicrous. A lot of the systems these days, you might pay £5 or £10 for all of your cameras, but the cost soon adds up. And within a year, you'll find that the cost of the purchase plus the 1 year subscription is probably way more than you pay for a Netatmo device in the first place. So that's one reason I like Netatmo. The other reason I like Netatmo and HomeKit is because it enables all the devices to work together. So everything can be viewed and controlled in Home app, and it also gives you really good integration. So you can say, if the CO2 level in my lounge goes above 1000, set the lounge lights to red, or send me a notification or do something else. And you can do all sorts of really smart things with it. And it's just really nice having that interaction. So I've actually got a light in my kitchen which changes color. So if I'm coming home, when I get within a mile, the light changes purple to let people know that I'm coming home. If Nathan's coming home, when he's nearly home, when he's 5 minutes away from home, the light changes to red. So you can do all sorts of really cunning things like that, which is just great fun. These are some of the Netatmo security products. They're all HomeKit compatible. This is a smart alarm system with a camera. This is the video doorbell. I've got 2 of these, one for front door, one for back door, but I've not fitted them yet. I've got this is the original outdoor camera. The camera, smart outdoor camera, has got a floodlight at the top. So the big white part is the floodlight. The small black part underneath it is the camera. And it's a daylight camera, but it's also an infrared camera. And the light is LED daylight type bulbs, or illumination rather, but it's also infrared illumination, so it can do both. They've recently brought out this new camera with a siren, and that's got a quite a loud siren in, which you can use as an alarm. I'll show you how that works in a minute. There's also a smart smoke alarm, smart carbon monoxide alarm. So carbon monoxide, unlike carbon dioxide, is toxic. Carbon monoxide shouldn't exist in your home. If it does, it means something's not burning properly. You've perhaps got a problem with a flue or boiler or something like that. carbon monoxide is very toxic, makes you very drowsy and kills you. So that's quite serious. It's a shame they don't have a smoke alarm and combined carbon monoxide alarm, because obviously it's getting expensive to have these. The smart indoor camera, which I quite like, and there's the indoor siren. The idea of the indoor siren is it scares your burglars away. So if burglars come into your home and the siren goes off, then the idea it should scare them away is definitely. I don't have one of those. I thought the cats might not like it. The indoor cameras can be connected to a cable, to a wall plug, a charger, a power supply rather. And they've also got Wi-Fi and Ethernet capability. The outdoor cameras are Wi-Fi only. And I do wish they had Ethernet as well. It's quite fiddly to install, but it'd be nice if they had Ethernet. And some of the cameras, like I say, have got a siren. The video doorbell just uses your existing doorbell wiring for power. It doesn't need its own power. It connects to the network through Wi-Fi, and it doesn't have Ethernet. The smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms are Wi-Fi as well, and the indoor siren is Wi-Fi. Now, installing anything indoors is trivial. You just plug it in next to a main socket, you run the cable to the camera, set it up with Wi-Fi, and job done. The outdoor cameras are harder because you've got to get power to them. They all need mains power, and that's quite fiddly. So what I normally do, I've done a couple myself, and I've got an electrician to do a couple. And you need a long drill bit. You drill a hole through the wall. You put wall plugs in on the outside. You mount the camera. You connect the power through. You have to take an extension from a main socket or something like that. Just take something off your ring main, lift some floorboards, and it's a bit fiddly to do. So you can try and do it yourself. I've done a couple. It's not that difficult. Might take a couple of hours all in all with all the configuration, setting up, and everything else. Or you get an electrician to do it. This is the outdoor camera, and these are great. So it's got its own local storage. It comes with I think it's an 8 GB SD card. You can upgrade that to a 32 GB SD card, and it can detect people, cars, animals, and now parcels. So what that means is it's actually doing its own image recognition on the camera. So the camera itself has got some really cool software that knows what it's looking at, and it's phenomenal. So I've tried other cameras, other security cameras, and the problem is you end up with 24 hours of footage every day. And you think, well, did anything happen last night? So you sit there over your cornflakes at breakfast, scrolling back through all the video, and you can see a few cats wandering around and the odd fox, and you can see lots of tree branches moving and clouds coming and going, and it's all very tedious. The Netatmo cameras only record when they see something. So you can say, just record the people, the cars, and the animals. And they work really effectively. You get the odd false alarm, but very few. And then the floodlight, you can choose to trigger depending on what they see. So you can say, if you see this, turn the floodlight on. And that's fantastic because you can turn it on for people, but not for other things. The alarm is built in, it's just a loud siren, but it's not automatic. There's no way that I've found of activating it automatically. And you probably wouldn't want to. You don't want any activity outside to set off the alarm because it's not 100% reliable. And you probably don't want internal activity to set off the alarm either, unless you're going away. But what you can do is get an alert to say the cameras have detected the intruder, and then you get a little button to say manually activate the alarm. And then if you sound the alarm, the neighbours will hear it. But meanwhile, you could be on the phone to the police or calling a neighbour or whatever you want. There's no subscription charges because they save the video, first of all, to the internal SD card. You have to be a bit careful. If you replace the SD card, you need to get some special grease because the camera is not waterproof. It's bizarre. The camera, the casing is not IP65 rated or anything like that. It actually is designed to let water in, but then the circuit board itself is waterproof and all the connections are greased. So if you put no SD card in, you have to use some special silicone grease to coat it to make sure you've got a seal and just keep the water out. So it can save video to the internal SD card, and you typically get a week of video on a 32 GB card with quite a lot of activity. It can also save to an FTP server or to Dropbox or to iCloud. Now, obviously a Dropbox account you have to pay for, and iCloud you have to pay for. But if you've got them anyway, so I pay for a 2 terabyte iCloud account, so I can send all my video to iCloud at no cost. The FTP server is really cunning. The FTP server could be an external FTP server on a website, or it could be an FTP server in the home. So if you've got a, what's it called, Synology hard drive network, NAS drive, network accessible storage drive, that usually comes with the FTP server, and there's various other ways of running FTP servers in the home. You could do it on Raspberry Pi. So if you want to, you can send all of the recorded video to your FTP server and just keep it somewhere in the home. So that completely avoids, you've got 3 ways there of avoiding subscription charges. You either use the internal SD card, use an FTP server inside your home, or you go to iCloud if you've already got a subscription there. You can view the live or recorded video anywhere. So all the video is stored, and the whole thing is compatible with HomeKit Secure Video. HomeKit Secure Video is something Apple introduced about 2 or 3 years ago. So videos from your cameras are saved to iCloud. The doorbells can send videos to iCloud as well. And to use it, you need what they call I can't remember what they call it, a home device, home gateway device or something. But basically it's either an Apple TV or a HomePod. And the cameras stream all the video live to your device. In my case, I've got an Apple TV, I've got a 4K Apple TV. And then the Apple TV itself uses its own intelligence to determine if it can see people, pets, cars, or parcels, I should say. And you can view the last 10 days of activity in the Home app. If you've got a 50 gigabyte iCloud storage plan, you can use a single camera. If you've got 200 gigabytes, you can use 5 cameras. And if you've got a 2 terabyte plan, that's the top end one, you get unlimited cameras. And the cunning thing about it is the video from HomeKit Secure Video from your cameras does not count towards your storage. So any recorded security video is outside of that 2 terabytes that you've paid for. But they only store 10 days. You can access it through the Home app. So the Home app is available for iPhone, iPad, Mac, and Apple TV. This is what it looks like. This is the Home app running on my iPhone. You can see I can turn alarms on and off. I can view different rooms. It's showing me a summary of temperature and whether the garage door is open or not, what lights are on, hallway thermostat, etc. And you can also choose one room, so you can get a summary of the whole house, or you can choose an individual room to look at. This is what the Home app looks like on a Mac. So I've currently got 5 cameras connected. I've got a front door camera, driveway camera, what I call my side window camera, my yard camera, and my garden camera. That's the back garden. So I've got a view from 5 different cameras around the house. I've also got a landing camera, but I only turn that on, that's internal. I only turn that on when I go away. So annoyingly, you don't get a live view of the cameras. The view is actually updated every 10 seconds. So every 10 seconds, you get a new still image. Unless I actually click on one of these, and when I click on it, then I do get a live view. It's the same on the iPhone and the iPad, but bizarrely, on the Apple TV, it can show a live view of all cameras simultaneously. So I can see all of the cameras live, and that works really well. I should mention the cameras have got microphones as well, so you can actually hear the audio. So if you've got burglars outside saying, "Here, Bob, pass the wrench," then you can hear everything they say. You've then got to decide whether you want to use the manufacturer's app like NetAtmo or the Apple Home app to use all of these. There's pros and cons. I use both. Apple Home and HomeKit integrates all of your devices, so you can get a single room view to look at a particular room, or you can look at the cameras together. But the vendors' apps, like the NetAtmo app, often show you a better way of viewing things. So all of the cameras give you an historic timeline, and the timeline, I've got a picture, I'll come to it in a second. The timeline shows me all the video that's been recorded going back in time for weeks if necessary. But in the home view, I can only look at the timeline from one camera at a time. And you might say, well, this intruder walked around my house, I want to see it all together. So the NetAtmo view shows you a timeline with all of the cameras on it. And it's just really nice having the two different alternatives. This is what it looks like. So this is the outside of my house. This is our front garden. Can you see my pointer, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, so here's one camera on the corner here. That's looking down onto my drive where my car normally lives. Here's another camera. This is looking down onto this space by the front door. So if anyone comes through into the path up the front door, then I can see them. The driveway is here on the left. That's where I park my car. I've then got a path here, and I'll talk about this later because it's quite important. I've got a gate. You do need a good Wi-Fi signal. I found that quite problematic. So my router is up here in the office where I am now on the second floor, and it's got to go to about 3 or 4 walls to get to this camera. And I got a very dodgy signal, and that didn't work well at all. So I then added another Apple, what's it called, Airport Express in the kitchen, and that will connect to the Airport Express in the kitchen. And then I've also got an Apple time capsule, which can do act as a Wi-Fi hotspot, and that's in the front room. So that covers this camera and another camera around here in the back garden. The cameras can use infrared illumination at night, or they can turn the floodlight on. So, and you can also choose zones to analyze and zones to ignore. And that's really useful. So you can actually draw from each camera view. You can draw on the screen or control it with different bar graphs or blocks rather. And you can say, ignore anything in this zone and only activate on something in this zone. So that's really nice. So my floodlights only turn on when people or vehicles actually enter the drive or the path. If anyone walks past on the pavement, the floodlight doesn't turn on. So it always annoys me. You walk down the street and you've got these floodlights that dazzle you, they're turning on needlessly, they're wasting energy, light pollution for the sky, upsetting all the astronomers, and you just don't need to turn the lights on all the time. But you take 2 steps into my drive and the camera says there's a person in the drive and turns the floodlights on. Even better, they're not activated by animals. So we actually get a load of animals around here. We get foxes and badgers and all sorts. And they can walk past and the cameras just ignore them. They do not turn on. I can still record them because I can say to the camera, if you see an animal, record it, but use infrared light. If you see a person, record them, but turn the floodlight on as well to get better illumination. And if you just see some motion, don't bother doing anything. Don't even bother recording it unless you recognize it as an animal or a person or something like that. And it's really cunning. The recognition is fantastic. One of my friends came around with a little girl once, and she was dressed in a cat costume. She was only about 7 at the time. And I said, can you pretend to be a cat? Can you crawl out from behind the wall, pretend to be a cat, act like a cat, and then come back? And we'll see what the camera thinks you are. And straight away, the camera says, I've seen a person and I've seen an animal. And I thought that was really cunning to actually recognize it would look like an animal, but it looked like a person. And it said, I've seen both. And if you drive a car or a van into the drive, it says, I've seen a vehicle. But also, if I come in on a bike or a tandem, it says, I've seen a vehicle. And it's just phenomenal at recognizing things. And it makes a very odd mistake. And I suppose one of the annoying things is you sometimes get spiders making webs across the camera lens, and you get a very detailed close-up view. And that's quite beautiful to watch. You get some fantastic video of spiders making webs. So that's the cameras. I'll give you a live demo. Have you got any questions in the meantime?
Paul, the only one that cropped up in chat was from Ferris just saying, asking how the lights and cameras were powered, but I think you said that it was necessary to drill a hole through the wall and
Yes.
plug them in, yes?
Yes, they're all mains powered, so you have to get the mains to them. So what you need to do is take a spur from the ring main, from a socket or something. You need to put a switch. I normally put a switch and a fuse in, so you can get a little switch that goes into the wall. So you need to cut a hole in the wall, put a switch in with a fuse in it, and then take the wire through the wall and bring it outside. So I've got a degree in electronics. I'm quite happy doing that. You might want to get an electrician to do it.
It's worth saying that you can often wire them in place of an outdoor security light that you've already got.
Absolutely. Actually, I did that, John, and that's really useful. Yeah, definitely. So that makes it much easier. You just take a light down and you put this up. And that's really interesting. I put these cameras up, and nobody realized it was a camera, even my children. It was after about 3 months, they saw me looking at the TV, looking at the driveway, and they go, "Wait, is that a camera?" I said, "Yeah, of course it's a camera." I said, "How long's it been now?" I said, 3 months. And most people just think it's a light, which is actually really good. I mean, in some ways you think, well, perhaps I ought to advertise I've got cameras, so I can warn burglars off. But I don't know. I quite like it, really. So this is the Home app running on my Mac. And here's my camera view. Okay, so this is the front garden that you can see. Here's my driveway with my car. Here's some barriers where I've got gas supplies, gas pipes being dug up. Here's my neighbour's window. This is the driveway camera looking out. Here's the backyard, garage door, and here's the back garden, steps down to the garden. If I double click one of those, let's look at the front garden. Okay, that's the view now. I can turn the sound up. Pretty quiet, nothing much happening. There's a car driving past. Hopefully you can see that. Now, at the bottom, I've got a timeline. So that's a live view. If I scroll back, there's a person here. Let's see what this was. Here's a person walking through. That's my son coming home from school. And I can go back a bit further. Here's some motion. Not sure what the motion was. It does occasionally get activated incorrectly, but very rarely. And I can actually scroll back, and you can actually scroll at speed. This is quite cunning. There's our cat. Okay, and this is interesting. One thing I didn't mention: the Apple Home software can recognize faces, so it knows what I look like. And just from me walking past, doesn't look like a very good quality image. There you go. It recognized me, and it said, "That's Paul Skirrow." And that's kind of scary. And I've actually got all of the people in my photo library available to Apple Home. So if John came round or Mike came round, it would probably recognize them. And it's just phenomenal. So it doesn't always recognize people. And then overnight, oh, there you go. What's this? That's something interesting. This is an animal. So this is looks like a fox. We get loads of foxes around here. Yeah, it's quite a big fox there.
You've got a fox poo in your garden now.
Yeah, exactly. It's annoying. And that's yesterday. And I can scroll back. I can go back 10 days. You can see all sorts of things going on. It's just magical. So there we go. Oh, that's that sound of a drill. They're drilling to put new pipes in. I can minimize that and make it go down to picture in picture. I can maximize. I can pause. Oh, I can zoom as well. So I can zoom in on bits and move around like that. So that's quite nice. Or I can go back to the live view. We get a load of stuff in our garden. So if I scroll back through there, go back overnight, we get quite a few foxes, although our cat Nemo doesn't like the foxes and he scares them away. So that's the camera view. I've not really talked about the indoor cameras. The indoor cameras are quite cunning because they also do face recognition, but they do the face recognition locally in the camera. So you can teach them different faces and different people. I don't use them anymore. I used to use them, and people get quite uncomfortable at the thought of having cameras indoors inside your house filming you. So I had some objections from my children. So if you go away, it's quite useful. But you can use them for other things. I mean, we had a mouse in the kitchen cupboard, and I was trying to work out where it was going. I said to a mouse trap, and I said to a camera, and it's quite useful being able to find out where the mouse goes. Unfortunately, the cats got to it before I did, and it died. You can also, if you go away, you might want to set up an indoor camera looking at your aquarium if you've got a fish tank, or your cat flap, so you can check on the cat coming and going. So you can do all sorts of things with them. Any more questions at that stage?
Nothing in chat.
Okay, let me just show you. Some of this is quite nice. Oh, here we go. I've got some. I'll show you what happens if you get an intruder. Where are we? There we go. So here's an intruder. This is zoomed in. So I took the video from the camera and I zoomed it so we get a close up. So this is someone checking out my shed door, which is a bit annoying. And in that particular case, the police could identify him. They weren't able to prosecute because they didn't have any evidence of him committing a crime, but you can actually see his face. So quite often people come round, just go and trial the car doors, trial the shed doors, and anything they find, they break in and take. But they'll do it on the whole street. So if my neighbours have had a break-in, I can say, they often say, you've got a neighbourhood mailing list, and people say, do you have any video from cameras? And I can share the video with them, with the police. So there's one intruder. Here's the same intruder. He actually tries the back door, which is a bit worrying. It's the only time this has happened. It is a bit disturbing, actually. You know, I'm sure people are coming around checking lots of doors and you don't ever know about it. It's only when you've got the cameras you find out and you suddenly realise what's going on. But then, even better than that, and this is what I love the cameras for, is all the wildlife. So I think here's an interesting one. This is a video we got some time ago. It's a badger. So I live in the middle of Ipswich, less than a mile from the town centre, and we get a badger wandering around in the garden, which is quite special. And what else have we got? Oh, this one's quite special. This is bizarre. There's two foxes. This is zoomed, so the quality is quite poor. It's a night shot, so it's infrared illumination. And I've zoomed it by probably a factor of 4. So it obviously looks a bit fuzzy, but it's still quite nice to see it. There's a better one, actually. Where's the other one? Look at that one. Oh, this is it. We've got two foxes here sitting next to each other. And here we've got two muntjac deer wandering around. And it's just bizarre the way they don't care about each other. And they don't care because the muntjac deer knows that the fox isn't a threat. It can move so fast, the fox doesn't stand a chance of catching it. And the fox isn't interested because it knows if it tries to catch a muntjac deer, it's probably going to get kicked and come off pretty badly. So it's just fascinating how close they get. It's actually eating seeds that have fallen off the bird table. And I love it. The main purpose now of the outdoor cameras is watching the wildlife. And it's really quite fascinating. And there's just one more I want to show you. I think it's this one. There we go. Here we go. That's a fox being chased by a cat, Nemo. The fox turns on Nemo, growls at him, and then Nemo decides to run for the cat flap. I love that. It's great. So there we go. That's the kind of thing. Oh, and there's other things you can do. It's you can do time lapse. This is the cat one. Sorry, that's a fox, and that's our cat going for it. It lies in ambush, waiting for the foxes to come. It's like a hobby for him. And this is I've got another camera looking at the drive as well. It's a low down view. The fox looks pretty worried. There we go. And yes, you could do time lapse shots. So somewhere, do that one. So this is a slow-mo of 24 hours. And look at the snails. You can see all the snails wandering around. Quite fast at this speed. Right. Any questions before we move on? No.
That'll be
Okay,
a no.
next one. How long for time, Mike? How long do you normally go on? Is everyone asleep? I don't know.
Oh, I hope not. Sort of 9:50. It's 20 to 9. So
yeah. So another half hour, maybe.
yeah, great.
I should cover it. Oh, Chris, have you got a question? You might be on mute, Chris. Can't hear you. You put your hand up.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was muted. You did mention earlier on, I did put this question in the chat, about having two Apple airports, airport extremes or whatever you call them, and that extended your Wi-Fi across the other side of the house. How do you connect? I've got two, but I just keep one in reserve, but it'd be very useful to have it right at the back of the house. So how do you connect them when they're in different rooms?
I've got the huge benefit of something you probably haven't got. I've got a cellar, and the cellar's fantastic because I've got a cellar underneath the entire house, so I can run Ethernet cables everywhere.
Right. So Ethernet cable, basically.
Ethernet cable is the best way. They can act as Wi-Fi repeaters. They're probably not the best devices to use these days. I mean, they use an old Wi-Fi standard, and they're not as good as the modern ones. Something like the BT discs are quite effective. So if you've got BT broadband, you can have a pair of BT discs. In fact, I don't think you even need BT broadband. I think discs will work with anything. So you have one disc next to your hub, and you plug it in. That acts as a relay, sends the internet, the traffic to another disc, to its own wireless connection, and then that acts as a repeater. So you can do all sorts of things. So that's probably a more effective way of doing it.
So that's what I was trying to find out, was whether the airport extremes could connect to each other through Wi-Fi.
They can, yeah.
They can. And when you set up the second one, it will ask you if you want to set it up in bridge mode.
That's it.
Right.
And
So
that's how you connect.
I don't need the cable then. I can do it in bridge mode.
Correct.
Right. Thank you very much. That's really useful.
Chris, just to mention, your question is not in chat. I have a feeling you may have just sent it to one of our guests rather than to everyone.
You're quite right.
So
I sent it to somebody who sent me a message. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries.
Thank you very much for answering.
Yeah. Something I've actually done. I mentioned my BT hub is actually in the second floor office. I've actually got a disused drain pipe, and I've run all the cables down this very old iron disused drain pipe, and it was completely clogged up with rust when I moved in. I managed to get the rust out of it, but it's dry. It's underneath an overhang, and it goes down into my conservatory. And then from there, I can drill a hole through the wall and get it into my lounge, or I can get down into the cellar, and I can actually cover most of the house with Ethernet cables. So I've got devices all over. I've got about 20 devices in my lounge all connected through Ethernet. And another device, I've got a Raspberry Pi in the kitchen connected through Ethernet, and it's just much better if you can do it. It's fiddly, but if you say you're going to be living in your house for a long while, it's worth doing. One of the reasons I use the Airport Express, let's get a picture of the Airport Express up. The Airport Express has actually got a big benefit. Okay. Don't want a shuttle service. I want to go. So this is what an Airport Express looks like. Just a small little box like this. There's different versions of it. Let's find some better images. That's the one I've got. So this is the Airport Express. It's got main socket. It's got Ethernet in and Ethernet out, which is really handy. It's got USB and it's got an audio jack. So I plug Ethernet in from my network. I put it into a cupboard where I've got a Raspberry Pi. So the Raspberry Pi is connected through that Ethernet cable. And then this headphone jack, this audio output, I run a cable from there to my kitchen speakers. So I can actually play audio in the kitchen. It goes to a very small amplifier. And I've got a little control unit, little volume control and channel select. And then I've got a couple of speakers on top of my kitchen cupboards. So I can say, hey Siri, play BBC News in the kitchen, and it will just play. Or I can say,
here's the latest news in the kitchen.
or I can say, play music in the kitchen, and it will do it. And that works really well. So it's it's serving multiple purposes. It's providing extension to the Raspberry Pi. It's providing audio to my kitchen speakers, and it's acting as a repeater, Wi-Fi repeater for the outside cameras. And then the other thing I've got is, again, quite old. I've got an Apple time capsule. You can buy these secondhand. You can buy them quite cheap. This is the one I've got. It's an old one. It's got a hard disk in it. So you typically have a 2 terabyte hard disk. Mine's been upgraded to 4 terabytes. And then it's got Ethernet in. It's got 4 Ethernet out ports. So I've actually put this in my front room. So it's got Ethernet coming in from the network. Got 4 Ethernet outs going to the TV, a BT TV box and something else. And it's also got Wi-Fi, so it acts as a Wi-Fi repeater. And it also works with Apple Time Machine. So all of our computers automatically do a backup to this time capsule, and it's providing Ethernet and it's providing Wi-Fi to the cameras. So that's a very useful thing to have. Right, let's move on so we don't run out of time. Hue light bulbs, lots of different light bulbs available. Hue are perhaps more expensive than some, but I really like them. You get lots of choice, different kinds of bulbs, as you can see here. They're bright, they've got a good spectrum. One of the problems with LED lights when they first came out is you get a spiky spectrum. So you imagine like a sodium lamp in the street that's just got 2 spikes and you can't see colour very well. A lot of the early LEDs had a similar problem. So you have a very spiky spectrum and all the colours would look very odd and they wouldn't dim very well. Philips have always been really good at making LED bulbs. They make fantastic bulbs, very good, very reliable, long life, bright, good colour spectrum. And they make 3 variants. So you can get colour bulbs, and they claim 16 million colours, so you can change the brightness and the colour. You get a white one, which is just standard white bulb that you can control, or you can get what they call white ambience light. And white ambience, you can change the colour temperature of it. So you can have bright white, which is what they normally say is 6,000 Kelvin, or you can have a very warm light, which is typically 4,700 K, and you can choose which type of light you want, what color temperature of light you want. All the bulbs are dimmable, so you can control the brightness. They're low power LEDs, so they take a fraction of the power of tungsten lights, and they use Zigbee, which is a very low power system, and the devices can send signals to each other. So the bulbs can communicate with each other, they can communicate with the switches, and that solves the problem of getting the signal around the house. So if one bulb is getting a signal from the base station, then it can relay the signals through bulbs and switches and sockets and all the other things in your house. You get different styles, so you get the filament style, as you can see here. You get some candle bulbs that do different fittings, that do the bayonet connector B22, they do the E14 and E27 Edison screw fittings, and there's a whole range of them. They also do switches, so here's a typical wall switch. This doesn't need to be connected to the mains or any power, it's battery powered, and you can put it anywhere. And this little panel in the middle is actually remote control. It just sits there with a magnet, So you can actually pull it off the wall. If you want to watch TV, you can sit on the sofa. You can control your lights with this remote control. You can turn lights on and off. You can adjust the brightness. You can configure it so the buttons do different things. So you can say, if I press the button twice, like a double click, it goes to bright white. If I press it 3 times, it goes to dim red. You can do all sorts of things with it. Or if you use the Apple Home app or the Philips Hue app, you can directly control the temperature, color temperature, and brightness. Or you can put it on a timer. So you can say, turn this light on. I've got a light on in my hall and my landing. I say, turn this light on at sunset, and then turn off at sunrise. And that just gives some lighting through the night if anyone wants to go to the toilet. It's quite useful when the children are young. And you can also change the temperature and the color. So I like it to be sort of fairly bright early evening. It gets dimmer as the evening goes on, and after midnight it goes red. So it's kind of a red night light. So if anyone goes to the toilet, the bathroom in the middle of the night, they're not woken up too much by the blue light. They also do strip lights. So I've got a strip light set up. That's, you can get all sorts of uses for these. They're flexible, lots of LEDs, sticky back, so you can stick them to things. But they are expensive. So the cheapest strip light is about £80. That's for a 2 meter. And you can get outdoor ones, and you can get the gradient ones where you can have different colors along it, different shades. You can do all sorts of fancy things with it. You get a motion sensor. So I love this. I like to have lights come on automatically as I walk around the house. So if I walk into my kitchen, the kitchen lights come on. If I go into the utility room, the utility light comes on. I step into the lounge, into the kitchen, then into the hall and into the bathroom, and all the lights just turn on and off automatically on a timer with the brightness depending on the time of day. I've still got all the normal switches. I can turn lights on and off if I want to, but by default, I like to have small lamps around the house. So I like some ambient lighting, especially in the evening. You don't need lots of lights on, and it saves a lot of power. And then the lights turn themselves off when you leave the room. Although this is expensive, you can buy a lot of things secondhand, and quite often you find things on sale. So if you look out for the Amazon Prime Day or Black Friday or some other sale event, you'll often find them much cheaper. So I've bought sensors about £30 or less. Got a little video here. So this is my kitchen. I just want to show you how this works. So I'll just play this video. Oops. How do I play? No. Thought that's a video, perhaps it's not. That should be a video. I'll play it another way. Let's show you the videos here. Here we go. This one, I think. Here's the video. This is me walking to my kitchen. The light comes on automatically. The sensor sees me, turns the light on. So I've got a lamp above my aquarium. I can talk to my watch, tell it to do things. There's the aquarium turned on. The aquarium's, this is just a demo. The aquarium's normally on a timer. There you go. And they'll fade in and out as well. So the brightness comes and goes. So instead of turning it on suddenly, it ramps the brightness up and ramps it down, etc. The aquarium is quite nice. I've got that set to come on in the morning and turn off in the evening. But in the morning, it turns on at 9 AM. Or if anybody walks into that room after 7:30 AM, the sensor picks them up and turns the aquarium on. So it's not wasting electricity. But as soon as someone goes into the room, the aquarium comes on. This is something else I've got. I've got lights under the kitchen work surface. So this is me walking into my kitchen. You can see the kitchen's black. The sensor picks me up straight away, turns on the light. Okay. So it's turned on the light. I've got a strip light underneath the kitchen work surface, so it gives very good light. And I've got a smart kettle as well. Sometimes it takes a couple of seconds to react. There you go, the kettle's on. And that's a weekette. That's available from Amazon. That's about £65, I think. I love the kettle. It saves me 5 minutes every morning. I wake up in bed. I say, "Hey Siri, turn the kettle on." It's doing it now. My phone picked it up. I say, "Turn the kettle on," and go and have a wash, clean my teeth, go downstairs, and the kettle's finished boiling, and I make a cup of tea. It's very reliable. It just works. So it's connected through Wi-Fi. I can set the temperature. So I can set the temperature to 70, 80, 90, 100 degrees. You can actually see there, it's got these different buttons on it. It's got a keep warm button. I can control all of this through the app or through Siri. And it even works, I can be driving home. I can say, turn the kettle on. And when I get home, it's finished boiling. The only thing you have to watch, you have to remember to put water in it. If you forget to put water in it, annoyingly, it realizes after a few seconds, it gets up to 100 degrees, realizes something's wrong, and then it cuts out, and then it starts flashing to warn you, and then it disables itself, and you have to turn it off at the mains because you've been a naughty boy. You have to turn it off at the wall, turn it back on, and that resets it. What they should be able to do, and I've told them this, if they look at the temperature rise, normally it goes up by 1 degree every second or two. If you see the temperature rising really rapidly, so it goes straight up to 100 degrees or 60 degrees in less than 5 seconds, you know there's something wrong. You know there's no water in it. And I just wish the software picked that up, but it doesn't. I had a lot of trouble with Wi-Fi connectivity at first. It was unreliable talking to the BT hub on the second floor. But once I started using the new Wi-Fi repeater in the kitchen, it just completely solved the problem, and it works really well. And that's a weekette. Here's a sensor. That's one of the sensors I've got. It's just sitting on the wall. I can probably mount it somewhere else, but I'll just put it there for now. Okay, what else have we got? Oh, I've got a smart washing machine. Why do you want a smart washing machine? I hear you cry. It's not very useful, really. It can do software updates over the air. So if there's new developments in washing technology and software routines for different clothes, it can download them. Well, that's not especially useful. I can remotely start the washing machine. So if I get to work and think, damn, I should have started the washing machine, I can start it from work. That's not really very likely, is it? I've gone to all the trouble of putting the washing in and putting the detergent in and everything else. Chances are I've probably turned the washing machine on. So that's not very useful. What is useful is it tells you when it's finished. So I get a notification again on all of my devices. It will tell me on my computer, my phone, my iPad, my Apple Watch. I get a little message saying the washing machine's finished. And it's great when it works. Only a couple of weeks ago, I got this message on my watch, which is really confusing. So it's controlled through the Home Connect app, and the washing machine is telling me my beverage is ready, which is really bizarre. So the Home Connect app can actually do lots of different things. It can control lots of different devices. And I think it just got its knickers in the twist and got a bit confused. So telling me my beverage is ready, I dread to think what it's going to produce. It's going to be very soapy anyway. So I just thought that would make you laugh. Here's the kettle. So my kettle tells me when it's turned itself on. Even if I'm at work and someone else turns the kettle on, it tells me. But it's useful to know if the children have got home from school. I can see someone's turned the kettle on, know what's going on in the house. So that's that. Right. Any questions so far on lights or Philips Hue?
Nothing in chat.
Okay. Right. This is one of my first projects. This is something I did before the other stuff. This is homemade, but this gives you an idea of what's possible. So this is an infrared driveway beam. I knew we'd got intruders coming around. This is before I had the security cameras, and I wanted to know about it. So I made this system using infrared transmitter receiver pair. I've got one emitter and one gate post, and I've got two receivers the other side of the front garden. The two receivers are connected via a very long cable. It's about 30 meters into a Raspberry Pi, and it goes through the hedge, through an air brick into the cellar, through two different cellars, up into a Raspberry Pi hidden in the cupboard in my kitchen. The Raspberry Pi has got some code that I wrote myself that monitors the two inputs. So just two wires going in, it monitors those two inputs and deduces what's happening in my front garden. And then it uses something called pushover to send notifications to all my devices. Pushover is a system that a company provide, and it's just a really good way of getting notifications into an iPhone or an iPad or a computer. This is how it works. So you can see here, that's the gate post. And obviously most of us can't see infrared, so I've drawn on the infrared to show where it would go. So that transmitter is obviously sending out a wide beam, but I've got one receiver down here, bottom left. I've got another receiver here, bottom right. And that's deliberate. I've deliberately got this spread like this. I could have used two transmitters, and maybe that would have been more sensible, but it's just more fiddly to set up. This beam actually goes behind the tree. It's very cunningly arranged. I've got a gate there. The gate is never closed. It's very cunningly arranged to go in between the metal poles of the gate to the sensor the other side of the garden. And then the same here. This beam travels through this gate up to a sensor up here, and there's nothing else in the way. And the total distance is probably good 20 meters, 15 meters at least, something like that. And it works extremely well. Here you can see a camera as well. So I've got a camera looking onto my front garden. But this is the Raspberry Pi. So I've got this is the interface card for the Raspberry Pi. It's a little test setup. So this is a Raspberry Pi with an interface board on it. And it's got some wires coming into it. And this is a little test system. So I've just got two buttons here. So I can use this to test the software. So you press the button to simulate one of the infrared beams being broken. And that's a way of developing the software. And then let's see if I go back to the video. I've got a power supply in the garage, 12-volt power supply. I've got a cable that runs down here, runs all the way down this fence, all down that fence, all the way through the hedge, up to here. And then if you look at my gate post, you'll see there on the gate post, that's the infrared transmitter. Okay, so it's a very small, discrete unit. No one will ever notice it. You wouldn't know what it was. Just sits there, works perfectly, sends out infrared. That's a close-up of it. So it's just got this wire coming in, and it's weatherproof, and it just works. And then there you can see the gate. So the beam goes through the gate this way and this way. So look, and it goes all the way across the garden up to one receiver here on the end of a wooden pole, very carefully positioned, and another receiver just here. So what happens is if you break one beam and then it's restored, and then you break the second beam, you know a person has walked in through the drive. If you break this beam first and then that beam, you know a person's left the drive, sorry, the path rather. Here, the beam is are quite close together. So somebody comes through and breaks both beams simultaneously. So you break one beam, break the other beam almost at the same time. You get a bit of a time gap. So you can detect whether a person's walked through the drive or through the path, and you can detect which direction they've gone. And if the beam is broken for more than 2 seconds, you know it's a car. So if we go back to the videos, this is what it looks like. This is presented on my Apple iPhone using the pushover app. So you can see it. Let's have a good look. 6:20. Oh, let's look at the morning. So here we go. 8:31, person left the drive. 8:41, car left the drive. 8:53, car entered the drive. Okay. And you see down at the bottom, somebody left the path the previous day. This is a camera view showing the same thing. So this is me walking in. I think you get a notification. That's from pushover saying the person's entered the drive at 9:03. These numbers are diagnostic information. It tells me how long each beam is broken for, etc., and the time offset. So that just shows you that someone walks into the drive. That's the kind of notification you get on your phone or on your watch. And it's useful, you know, quite often I'm sitting upstairs or in the garden or something, and I don't always hear the doorbell. So it's useful now you've got a delivery person or somebody arrived at the door. Let's play that again so you can see it. It's very quick. So as soon as I break that beam, you get the pushover notification. Okay. And then, in case another demonstration, if someone walks in from outside, I've broken the first beam, I've broken the second beam, I've got 2 cameras that have picked me up now, 3 cameras that have picked me up now. And if I look at my Apple Watch, it will start telling me a whole load of information. It'll say someone's driveway seeing somebody, side window seeing somebody, and then it will tell me that pushover has detected someone entering as well. Here's the postman. That's what happens when the postman comes. So you can see a postman walking in, walking out. And if you remember, I said it got a siren. So it says, this is the NetAtmo camera app. It's saying it's seen a person. That's one camera, that's a different camera. So that's the first event. The postman came in past the car and they walked out through the path. And if I click this button, that sounds the alarm, the external siren. And on my lock screen, I get information like this. So you can see here, this is probably the postman event. 9:39, 20 seconds, person into the drive, person seen by driveway camera, person seen by front door. 9:39, 31 seconds, person left the path. And sometimes it'll actually say postman because it knows what he looks like. I think to be reliable, you need a much closer view. I think if I had a doorbell camera, it'd probably work better. And here's just a sort of typical summary. This is what I typically see on my phone when I look at it. It's telling me person's entered the drive, cars entered the drive, person seen by yard, kettle stopped heating. I've also got something called cloud voice. So that means if someone rings my landline at home, it's routed through to my mobile phone. I can answer the phone there. I can access voicemail from my phone, and it integrates my landline with my iPhone. Okay. So that's the driveway beam, and that's kind of showing a bit of what happens when it's all put together. Any questions on that?
Nothing in chat, Paul.
Nope. Okay, stunned everybody into silence. Okay.
I was just going to ask Paul if you're expecting high levels of activity on Halloween. Are you going to come up with an anti-Halloween visitor? You're going to sort of be able to deposit eggs on them from above or something like that?
Well, I normally, for Halloween, I normally position a Bluetooth speaker outside in the hedge, set it to maximum volume, and then you get some young children ringing the doorbell, and you play some very scary sound effects to them, because I've got a scary sound effects collection, and that scares them more than they scare me. And that's very good fun. The classic one, when I first got the infrared beam going, I was using it on multiple devices. So I got it on my phone, my iPad, and other family members had got it set up as well, and different people had configured it to play a different sound. And then it started snowing, and the snow gets confused in the software bit. I keep meaning to sort this out, and it just thinks there's loads and loads of events. So it's going dong, ding, ding, dong, dong, dong. And you get all these devices around the home, having dinner at the time, and all these devices, the curtains are closed, all these devices suddenly start playing these different noises. You get this huge cacophony of noise. And everyone's looking at each other going, what's happening? And I go, it's snowing, because it's the only explanation. And you pull the curtains open wide, and sure enough, we've got big flakes of snow coming down. And it just confuses the software. And that's really annoying. So for the last 3 years, I've been meaning to fix the software and count the snowflakes, because I can actually do that. I can actually monitor and detect snowflakes. And because the pattern's different, you can see it's not someone entering or leaving the drive. And you can actually count the snowflakes and predict how many snowflakes you get per square meter. And I'd love to do that. That'd be great fun. But it's kind of low priority, and I'm kind of a busy person, and I don't know if I'll ever do it. Maybe one day when I retire. But it would just be nice to say that I can count snowflakes. I don't know why, but it just tells you what the snowfall is like. So yeah, that would be good fun.
Well, it's coming up on 9:10.
Yeah, okay, we better think about wrapping up. I was going to mention, I've got a garage door control module. So I've got an electric garage door. I've got a little module, which is Wi-Fi. You need to think carefully about where you position things, because my Wi-Fi repeater in the house is sort of further off to the right. If I put it here on the wall next to the power switch, it's got to get through this brick. If I put it up here, it's just got a piece of wood. So whenever you think about Wi-Fi connections, you've got to imagine wood is invisible. So you go through wood really easily. Metal and brick are very solid. So what I need to do is put a little extension cable on, have a little unit fixed up here, linked into my garage door controller, and I can say things like open sesame, and the doors will open. Or I can say open the pod bay doors, Siri, and that'll open the garage door. So the next stage, of course, would be to detect if I'm cycling home. It could look at my location. You can see when I'm approaching home. And then I need to do face recognition. So when I come into the drive, it sees that I've entered the drive and opens the garage door for me automatically. And that'd be quite a nice thing to do. But again, that's quite a lot of effort to get set up. So at the moment, when it's set up, initially I'll just talk to my watch and say, hey Siri, open the garage door. And then it will open. I've got 2 doorbells to fit. I've also got the Netatmo thermostat and home energy system to fit. That's quite a nice setup, because what you can then do is control individual radiators. So I've got little motors on the, let's find the website. I'm just about finished. I'll show you this very quickly, because this is quite a nice thing to do. Oops. There we go. So this is the Netatmo thermostat system. You get a thermostat that sits on your wall, and that's a little control module. Again, it's all HomeKit compatible. And then these are the radiator valves. So the idea is you put these on each radiator. They've got a couple of AA batteries in, and they're motorized. So they can control the temperature in each room. So with the energy crisis that's coming, I'm thinking in a big house, I don't need to heat the lounge during the day. So the lounge can stay cold and warm up at, say, 5 p.m, ready for anyone to use it. Similarly, the office on the second floor can be cold at weekends because it's going to be empty. So it's going to be fairly expensive to set it all up, but then you can control individual rooms, set individual target temperatures for each room, and only you turn the radiators on that you actually want to turn on. And I don't know what the energy savings is likely to be, but if you let a room cool down, you've got less heat loss through the walls, and it gives you more flexibility. And also it means if you go out to work, if the house is empty and I've forgotten to turn the heating off, I could tell it to turn the heating off, and it can turn on automatically when I leave work and start driving home, for example. So it gives you some extra flexibility. So I've got one of those, I've just not fitted it yet.
Sheeta, would you like to throw your question at Paul live?
Sure. Paul, how many Wi-Fi devices do you have?
Over 60.
Wow.
Okay. Now, is there a limit on your system?
No, because most of it's very low bandwidth. Apart from the cameras, it doesn't matter how many devices you have because there's hardly any traffic going to them.
Yes and no.
I mean, there's keep alive signals, obviously, but no, it's not a problem. All the critical devices, all the computers, the TV, the set-top boxes, all of the things playing 4K video are connected through Ethernet. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we have iPads and iPhones which are using Wi-Fi, and some MacBooks using Wi-Fi, but most of the time they're not doing a lot of stuff unless the kids are watching Netflix or iPlayer or something. The cameras are sending a lot of video, but it's very low data rate. And I use different frequencies. So I use 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. So 5 gigahertz is generally reserved for all the computers and phones and things. 2.4 gigahertz is used for all the home automation devices. They're on a different Wi-Fi network, effectively.
Okay.
We've got no immediate neighbours, so they've got no interference. And just having, a lot of this stuff, remember, is Zigbee. So something like this, this sensor, this motion sensor, that's Zigbee. So that all goes back to the Hue base station, which is Ethernet connected.
Okay. Have you heard of Thread?
I have, yes, and Matter. So that's
Okay, yes.
something that's coming.
Yes, I'm looking forward to those.
Yes.
Because my house is sort of similar to yours right now, but I have so many other devices that I want to add. So I'm looking forward to Thread.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's worth mentioning that at the moment we've got different competing systems. We've got HomeKit, and Apple always pushed the security there, and it made it more expensive and complex. We've got the Amazon and Google type devices. We've got IFFT devices. We've got various apps and various systems that attempt to bring them all together, but it's all a bit of a mess. So there's this new system called Thread and Matter, and Matter, but any Matter device will work with anything. So it's a new standard for home automation devices that's going to be supported by Apple, Google, Amazon, and everybody. So basically, you won't need to worry about what you buy in future. You just buy something, as long as it's branded Matter, it works with your setup. And all of these devices that I've shown you now work with Android. They work with Alexa. They work with Google Home. So there's lots of other ways of setting them all up. HomeKit is nice in some ways, but it's got disadvantages. Sometimes it's a bit clunky, sometimes it's a bit slow. iOS 16.1 promises a new HomeKit architecture, which should be much faster and more reliable and make devices respond quicker. So I'm looking forward to trying that. That's not been released yet, but should be coming in the next couple of weeks. We're expecting an announcement for Apple in October, probably with new iPads. And that's when we expect new version of iPad OS 16.1. And that's when 16.1 will be available on iPhones, etc. So hopefully that's going to improve all of this. But generally, it's pretty reliable. Some of my children laugh at me and say, "Dad, how long have you spent setting all this stuff up? And wouldn't it be easier just to turn the light switch on and off? Because how many seconds do you save every day by not turning a light switch on and off? And how many hours have you spent setting all this up?" No, they've probably got a point.